Hello and good day to everyone. My name is Arlene C. Currently, I am a nursing student in semester 2, intake January 2025. So today, I would like to present my concept of nursing, which is a nursing legal and ethical responsibility, of patient safety, and accountability. So this is the first content that I would like to present, which is Introduction to a Nursing Concept. As we know, negligence and malpractice is almost the same but still have a different element. So negligence for in healthcare, uh, as we know for the definition, is a failure to provide standard care that causes harm to patient, while for malpractice, a person that have a professional license, she or he uh, negligence during their professional duties on patient care. So what are the key differences? Key differences is a malpractice specifically involve professional standard violation while negligence is broader. For the legal elements in the same thing, they both require duty, breach, causation, and damages to establish the liability. So there are four elements of negligence. The first thing is a duty of care. A nurse-patient relationship is established legal obligation is to provide the standard care. Breach of duty, failure to meet the professional standards expected in the similar circumstances. Causation, a direct link between breach and patient harm must be established. Damages, actual harm or injury resulting from the breach must occur. Next, we have a Malaysian legal framework, which is a Nurses Act in 1950. There are established legal standards for nursing practices in Malaysia, regulating professional conduct and licensure requirements. For the Malaysian Nursing Board, which is Lembaga Jururawat Malaysia, oversees nursing standards, provide guidelines, and enforces disciplinary action for professional misconduct. And for the third one is the Bolam test application, a legal standard adopted from the English common law to assess if healthcare professionals are meet the required care standards. The fourth is the common law principles, supplement statutory requirements, establishing precedents for negligence and malpractice cases in healthcare settings. So this is the second content, which is legal implication of negligence. So, what are the consequences? Well, for the civil liability, lawsuits may result in compensation for damages, pain, suffering, and medical causes. For the professional discipline, a nursing board may suspend or revoke the nursing license for falsifying documentation and negligence of care. For the institutional accountability, maybe hospital will face liability for employee actions and potential corporate negligence for understaffing. So for the ethical violations, the action breach non-maleficence, beneficence, and justice principles in patient care. So there are considerations for employer responsibility. The healthcare institution will held accountable for nurses' action within the employment scope. For the systemic factors, understaffing may contribute to negligence, highlighting an institutional role in unsafe environment. For corporate liability, the hospital will face accountability when the systemic issues contribute to patient harm. Legal protection by having proper staffing, training, and supervision will mitigate the institutional liability in risks. So, what are the violations in ethical principle? For non-maleficent breach, a nurse's action will cause harm to a patient by fail to detect hypoglycemia, for example. So it means she or he will violating their duty to prevent patient from injury. Next is the veracity violation by falsifying the blood glucose reading, undermine the truth telling obligation essential to patient trust and care. The next is a fidelity failure. A nurse broke a commitment to patient by documenting false documentation, unperformed tests, betraying professional responsibility. The fourth is a justice compromise. Patient denied proper care due to the documentation falsification, creating inequitable treatment situation. The next content is about documentation and patient safety. So we know that a documentation is very important to nurses as it is a legal record to protect us, to protect the patients. So the documentation importance is factual, timely records essential for care, continuity, and legal protection. For legal implication, falsifying records breaches ethical duties and serve as a negligence evidence. Malaysian guidelines, a nursing board require accurate documentation for patient safety. And also, documentation is for the critical thinking. For the clinical judgment, must rely on objective data, not by assumptions. So here's some Malaysian Nursing Board guidelines, as we call as Lembaga Jururawat Malaysia, a guideline for nurses like us. So for our professional standards for nurses, guidelines establish ethical conduct, competency requirements, and practice standards for nurses in Malaysia. So our ethical responsibilities, nurses must uphold integrity, transparency, and accountability in all patient interaction. So for the documentation rules, records must be factual, timely, complete, and accurate to ensure patient safety and for our legal protection. For legal framework, guidelines aligned with Nurses Act in 1950 establish professional boundaries and legal obligation. So there are consequences if we as nurses doing a falsification on documentation. The first is a legal implication. By being a negligence and malpractice, charges may result in license revocation, fines, and maybe going to prison. So patient will also have risk in safety and they are in high risk of being harmed because undetected condition like hypoglycemia can cause serious harm or death. The third is ethical violations, which is the falsification of documentation breaches the principles of honesty, fidelity, and professional integrity in nursing practice. Fourth is professional consequences, a disciplinary action from nursing board and nurses, he or she might a potential loss of their career. So this is the fourth content, a nursing responsibility in practice. So here's the fundamentals of patient safety. First is ethical vigilance, by doing right even when difficult or being unobserved. Second, legal boundaries is to understand the regulations, is to protect both nurses and patient from harm. Third, patient first approach. Prioritize, prioritizing safety, rights, and dignity remains central to our nursing care. Fourth is documentation integrity. As nurses, it's our responsibility to record accurate and ensure continuity of care and having a legal protection towards nurses and patients. So here's the ethical principles in nursing. First is patient autonomy by respecting patients' right to make informed decisions about their care. Second, non-maleficence is to avoid action that cause harm to patient during the care of delivery. Third, beneficence, acting in patients' best interest to promote their well-being and to prevent their harm. Fourth, justice is to provide fair, equitable care regardless of patient status or background. So here's the consideration of systemic issues. First of all is a staffing shortage impact. Understaffing pressure nurses into shortcut and compromise patient safety and documentation accuracy because they want to work fast. Also, they haven't have enough time due to a shortage of staff. So the secondly is organizational support. A proper resource and leadership is crucial for maintaining the ethical standards despite in the workplace challenges. Third is a communication failure. Well, an effective team communication is to prevent errors when workload constraint affects care of delivery towards patient. Fourth is a governance structures. Well, a clear protocol and incident reporting system is very essential for quality improvement and to error prevention in the future. So here's the fifth content, which is ethical decision-making framework. Beneficence and non-maleficence. Promoting a patient well-being, a nurses must act to benefit patients through evidence-based care and vigilant monitoring. Is to prevent harm, to avoid action that cause injury through accurate assessment and documentation of patient condition. Third, ethical obligation. A truthful documentation and proper monitoring is to prevent the preventable harm like, for example, Miss Lina's hypoglycemia. Fourth is the professional integrity, is to maintain the honest practice, builds trust and ensures a quality life of patient care. Next is the patient autonomy respect. For patient, they deserve to be informed the decision making. The patient must receive a complete information to make a healthcare choices aligned with the personal values. Privacy protection is a safeguarding confidential information to ensure trust and maintain patient dignity in clinical settings. Third is a consent requirement is a valid consent that requires capacity, voluntariness, and adequate information before any procedure or treatment begins to the patient. Fourth, a cultural consideration by respecting their diverse belief, enhance care quality, and to support the individual autonomy in healthcare decision. Next is the fidelity and veracity principles. So we must be honest in documentation is to record the accurate document and maintain the trust and protect patients from harm. Second is keeping promises by fulfilling commitments to patient and build a therapeutic relationship and professional integrity. Third, truth in care. So transparent communication ensures informed consent and respects patient autonomy. Fourth, legal implication. Falsification violates professional codes and may result in licensure revocation. So here's our Malaysian Code of Ethics. There are four professional conduct standards. A nurses must uphold integrity, honesty, and accountability in all patient interaction. Next, a patient safety is a priority to nurses. By preventing harm through vigilant monitoring and to accurate documentation is a fundamental to us. Third is a legal responsibility. Nurses are accountable for action under Malaysian law and nursing regulations. Fourth, ethical decision making is to apply principles of beneficence, non-maleficence, autonomy, and justice in practice. So here's the requirements of being truthful during reporting. First is to accurate documentation is very essential. By falsifying records, it could violate legal standards and to compromise the patient's safety. Secondly, is the legal consequences. Negligence claim arise when documentation error and will cause patient harm and maybe death. Third, ethical obligations. Honesty in reporting upholds a professional integrity and patient trust. Fourth, patient safety priority. So, precise monitoring can prevent complications like Miss Lina's hypoglycemia incident, for example. So here's the number 6 content that I would like to present, which is preventive strategies of implementation. So the next slide is a supportive ethical climate. First is ethical environment. It is matter. So nurses in ethical settings to report the errors, to practice the truthfully, and prioritize patient interests. Secondly, a clear protocols is essential. Institution must enforce SOP for monitoring, documentation, and reporting errors. Third, a leadership models ethic. As usual, a manager, sisters, matron must ensure enough staffing, resources, and for mentoring a new nurses. So The last is the ongoing education like CME or having a CSL lab is the continuous learning in ethics, legal updates, and clinical skills to prevent any incidents or any patient harm. So, how do we have a SOP, which is a standard operating procedure? First, we must have a clear guidelines. Well, a detailed protocols is to ensure a consistent care delivery across all the nursing staff. Second is a safety first. Number one, safety first. The SOP will minimize any errors and to protect patient from harm or death. Third is the legal protection. By following an established procedure, can provide a defense against negligence claims. Fourth, quality assurance. A standardized process maintain a high quality care and professional accountability. So, how incident reporting systems occur? First is a patient safety reporting is to promote transparency and prevent recurrence through systemic documentation of adverse events. Second, risk management is to identify patterns of errors to implement preventive measures and enhance patient safety protocol. Third, a learning culture. Encourage staff to report incidents without blame, focusing on system improvement rather than individual punishment. Fourth is a quality improvement. An incident report uses incident data to develop better practice and to reduce future occurrence of similar events. So this is the last content that I would like to present, which is professional accountability measures. So what are the individual and systemic responsibility? For individual accountability, nurses must maintain ethical standards despite challenges, ensuring patient safety through vigilant monitoring. Systemic factors, a staffing shortage contribute to errors but don't never use as an excuse for negligence. Institutions must provide an adequate support. Third is a balanced approach. Both personal responsibility and organizational improvements needed to prevent patient harm and to maintain trust. Fourth, advocacy role. Nurses must report unsafe conditions and request support when workload compromise care quality. How to have an effective team communication? First is having a clear communication channel to establish a reliable pathways for information to exchange within healthcare teams. Secondly, is important, which is being an active listener, active listening skills, to focus on understanding others before respond to improve team interaction. Third, respectful feedback methods is to provide constructive input that maintains professional relationship and dignity. Fourth, conflict resolution strategies. Address disagreements promptly using collaborative problem-solving approaches. So here's the importance of reflective practice. First is for a self-awareness development, is to enhance the understanding of personal values, bias, and actions in nursing practice. Secondly is a clinical improvement, is to identify any areas of growth through analysis of past experience and outcomes. Third is a evidence-based practice, bridge theory practice gap by critically evaluating nursing interventions against research. Fourth is an important having an ethical decision making is to strengthen the moral reasoning by examining complex patient care situation. So how do we maintain the public trust? First, the safety. Well, as a nurses, we must monitor accurately, document truthfully, no falsifying documentation, and to follow protocols to prevent patient harm. Secondly, being a professional is our responsibility. Our nurses must report unsafe conditions, communicate effectively, and to maintain clinical competence. Third, legal implication. Well, negligence and malpractice can lead to civil liability. License revocation and criminal charges also can lead to prison. Fourth, ethical standards, honesty, accountability, and integrity form the foundation of professional nursing practice. That's all from me. Thank you.